everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight for National Poetry Month with Mikey Cody Apollo. Mikey is also known, Mikey Murray is also known as Mikey Cody Apollo, is a Black queer writer, filmmaker, educator, and feminist killjoy from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Most of their work explores themes such as race, gender, sex, and religion. Mikey is the author of the self-published collection of poetry titled Black Girls, Silence, and Other Things Made of Gold, which has been used in classrooms, workshops, and book clubs across the United States. Mikey currently works for Ubuntu Research and Evaluation, a team of unapologetic Black women, femmes, and non-binary folk committed to disrupting systemic oppression through strategic evaluation, facilitation, and education. When Mikey grows up, she wants to be the first Black woman to receive the Academy Award for the Best Original Screenplay. And I really want to hear your acceptance speech on that. Thank you for joining us, all of our guests, and thank you, Mikey.
No problem. First things first, happy National Poetry Month, everyone. I am so excited to be partnering with Kenosha Public Library to bring you this presentation. For those who are joining, again, like if you want to turn your camera on, totally fine. If you want to keep it off, totally fine. There will be times in which I invite you to participate via chat, but as I'm presenting, as I'm reading poems and performing, please feel free to be in dialogue with one another and communicating and like sharing ideas, all that good stuff. Since we're unable to be in person, usually I would be able to feed off that energy from the crowd, but chat will do for now. Also, if you haven't already, writing materials, art supplies, and glass of water. I'm going to go over a couple intro slides so you still have some time to gather those things as well. So again, to reiterate, my name is Mikey Cody Apollo. I am a 26-year-old Black woman, writer, filmmaker, educator, and sex-positive feminist from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, born and raised in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I also identify as a bicon, i.e. a bisexual icon, and my zodiac sign is Capricorn. For those who may not know, Capricorns are represented by the sea goat, and goat is also slang for greatest of all time, so I like to combine the two. First things first, before we even begin to dig into content and talking about anything, I wanted to kind of give a broad trigger warning. A lot of my work talks about racism, sexism, homophobia, police brutality, gender violence, mental illness, suicide, and mentions of death. So I will also, before each poem, give a heads up as well. So those are moments where you're like, you have to do whatever you need to do to take care of yourself. Please feel free. Additionally, some of my poems talk about sex, nothing pornographic or explicit, but also something that some folks may want to know ahead of time. So I added that as well. All right. So before we jump in, I'm super into astrology. It's something that I nerd out about. I've been really geeked about for the past couple of years now. And it's really cool to see a lot of people getting on the wave of it via social media. However, I do want to address that there is no scientific proof that astrology is real. It is a pseudoscience, but it has been around since second millennium BC. And just because it is something that I'm super into or that like I utilize in my day-to-day, don't necessarily need to ascribe to it in order to enjoy this presentation, the poems, or even create and be in conversation tonight. So totally fine if you're walking in and you know nothing about astrology. I also would like to add that I am not an astrologer. I am not someone initiated in traditional Yoruba religion or any religion based upon it, such as Candomblé or Santeria. I'm just a big nerd who noticed the overlap in different pantheons from Roman, Greek, and Yoruba, and the attributes that Western astrologers have ascribed to the different planets and the signs that they are said to govern. With that being stated, I also was not a Greek mythology kid growing up, so if I am pronouncing any names wrong and you absolutely know I am, at the end, like I'm not above critique, so please feel free to let me know that as well. And then last thing, I wanted to include this quote from Penny Sorton, who wrote the book Astrology in the Workplace. And the quote is, "The sun, the moon, and the planets do not make us who we are. Neither do the sun and moon and the planets cause events. They mirror them." Okie dokie. So I wanted to give us a check-in question. I like to kick off all my presentations this way just to get an idea of who's in the space with us. So I want you to kind of use your radical imagination with me. Since the universe's formation, an estimated 13.8 billion years ago, it has been expanding outwards ever since. You, my fellow space explorer, are getting ready to explore worlds unseen and some yet to be created. As you get ready to embark on this mission, what are 3 things that you want to take with you? Oh no, someone's calling me, one moment. All right, so what are 3 things that you want to take with you if you were going on a space exploration? All of your necessities like food, water, all that stuff is taken care of, but you have the choice to bring 3 other additional items with you. So feel free to drop that in the chat. What 3 items would you take with you going on a space exploration? I already see someone shouting at an iPhone. Cat, Coffee Pot, Cyborg Manifesto, one of my favorite books. Music, my person, a universal google.com, some green tea, vibrator, love it, notebook, pencil, recorder, pen, paper, and iPod. Okie dokie. And then if you think of any more and want to drop those in as well, because I'm seeing folks talking about their cats, their phones, and their pets as well, please feel free. Thank you all for checking in. So another thing I wanted to shout out is this frame from the film The Golden Chain. The Golden Chain is a film that I was introduced to at UWM's Radical Black Imagination event. It was an event dedicated to Black filmmakers in experimental film. And that particular evening that I went, all the films that they played were directed by Black women. And that was just such a unique experience. And I think about this film often. So it's interesting because as I included this frame from the film, I did some more research on it later and learned that it completely fit in with tonight's theme of astrology and Afrofuturism. So I wanted to include the trailer from the film as well. The film was made in 2014 by director Adebukala Bodorin and graphic novelist Ezra Clayton Daniels. The summary is that Yetunde, the only crew member on Nigerian space station Echo, witnesses a recreation of the birth of the universe. This journey to the edge of the universe is a revisit of the Yoruba Earth creation tale and is a collaboration again between Bodorin and graphic novelist Daniels. All right. So for those who may be interested in actually watching the film, it was only 12 minutes and it is available on Criterion for those who may be interested in checking it out. But I just wanted to shout it out and lift it up since the artwork is not only gorgeous, but I felt like it fit right in with the themes of Afrofuturism. All right, so like I mentioned before, I was not a Greek mythology kid growing up, but I knew a lot of folks who were super into Greek and Roman mythology and talked a lot about in history classes, world history classes, so on and so forth. But it wasn't until I was well into my early adulthood that I learned anything about any type of faith or cultural practices from the continent of Africa, specifically from the region of Yorubaland. This is the homeland and cultural region of the Yoruba people in West Africa. This region includes Nigeria, Togo, and Benin. Traditional practitioners of the Yoruba religion believe in a pantheon of around 400 different gods and goddesses known as Orishas, and each of them governs a different aspect of the world or of human life, very similar, of course, to other pantheons we've been introduced to. So I learned of the Orishas in a similar way that I felt like a lot of people in my age bracket did, and that was through Beyonce's Lemonade in 2016. There were lots of visual homages to the goddess Oshun, and of course, as you'll learn later in this as well, because I included some Beyonce music videos, I'm really into Beyonce, and that was like an intro to me that sent me on a spiral to learn a lot more. And so the Orisha are spirits that play a key role in the Yoruba religion of West Africa and several religions of the African diaspora that derive from it. According to these teachings, the Orisha are spirits sent by the supreme creator, Oludumare, to assist humanity and teach them to be successful on Earth. Rooted in the native religion of the Yoruba people, most Orisha are said to have previously existed in the spirit world and then become spirits or divine beings incarnated as human on Earth. The Orishas found their way to most of the quote unquote new world as a result of the Atlantic slave trade and are now expressed in practices as varied as Santeria, Candomblé, Trinidad Orisha, and Umbanda, among others. So again, just want to highlight again, Orishas, the deities of the Yoruba people of southwestern Nigeria, pantheon, because I'm going to throw that word out a couple more times. Those are all of the gods of a people or religion collectively. And then of course, our two major themes, astrology and Afrofuturism. Astrology is the study of movements and relative positions of celestial bodies, stars, planets, things like that, and how they are interpreted to have an influence on human affairs, i.e. the natural world. And Afrofuturism is a genre, a cultural aesthetic, philosophy of science, and philosophy of history that explores the developing intersection of African diaspora culture with science and technology. And of course, we're going to talk about not only the future, but the past as well, since the two go hand in hand. All right, before we begin our first writing activity, I wanted to talk about two words that I feel like often come up in astrology, and that is what is a retrograde and what is a solar system. So a retrograde, you often hear it when folks are like, oh, Mercury's in retrograde, and it's like the end of the world for a couple of weeks. When a planet is in retrograde, it appears to be moving backward in the sky, traveling back into the sign it was previously transiting. So again, as the year goes on, right? Like you hear folks be like, it's Aquarius season, it's Gemini season, it's Leo season, so on and so forth. So again, time moving forward, right? So as if the planet is spinning, how one usually does. However, if one is in retrograde, it appears to be going backwards. So retrogrades are typically really great periods for review and reassessment. And again, we'll talk a little bit more about why folks tend to like get a little antsy when Mercury is in retrograde, and defining solar system, the gravitationally bound system of the sun and the objects that orbit it. And then of course, I included this gift from Orange is the New Black. Okay, so I saw some of you already talking about your zodiac signs in the chat. So if you know your zodiac sign, please feel free to drop that in the chat now. Like I mentioned before, I am a Capricorn. I am unapologetic in my Capricornness. If we were to go super in depth tonight, I would talk all about my natal chart and how there's like so many Capricorn placements, but I'm not going to do that to y'all. For those who may not know their zodiac sign, I have included the list on this side. So example, Aries, if you're born on March 21st, anywhere to April 19th, so on and so forth. I did this order of Aries to Pisces because this is a traditional zodiac order. So for those who may not be familiar, if you're thinking about the zodiac signs as the human body, Aries would be the head, Pisces would be the feet. So very different from how we typically do our calendar year. Okay, yes. So a shout out to y'all who know your big three. Seeing someone say Capricorn should have come first. I was trying to be fair. Pisces sun, Gemini moon, Libra rising. Aquarius sun, Taurus moon, Aries rising. Ooh, Cancer. Gemini, unsure if it's sun rising or whatnot. Scorpio, Gemini, Scorpio. Awesome. Taurus sun, Capricorn moon, Gemini rising. Scorpio sun, Libra moon, Aries rising. There's so much happening here. Also, I'm cracking up at y'all debating in the chat as well. All right. Thank you all for sharing your zodiac signs. First things first, so it is 6:16 right now. So for those of you who are writing, it can be, again, if it on your phone, on your computer, notebook, however you take notes best, or articulate your thoughts best. Now is the time to pull those things out. What I would like you to do is on the top of your piece of paper, or again in your notes app, whatever you're using, please write your name and your birthday. Your name can be literally whatever like you prefer to go by. the name. It does not necessarily be like anything that's like on documentation, like your name, how you define your name, and your birthday. When you are finished writing your name and your birthday, I want you to take the next 2 minutes to write about your origin. Where does your story begin, and what happened in your earliest memories that inform who you are today? There is no right or wrong way to do this. Your origin story is however you define it. So if you are familiar with your birth story, you can write that. If there is a favorite childhood memory that is like a core memory for you, and you consider that to be the start of your journey as a human being, that can be your origin story. Whatever that means to you, take the next 2 minutes. We'll probably round it up to 3. So we'll do an even stop at 6:20. So take the next 2 minutes and we'll come back at 6:20. All right, if you are not finished, totally okay. We will have more time towards the end as well. I'm also about to read the first poem of the evening. So if you want to take some more notes while I'm reading, like none of y'all have your cameras on, so I can't tell what you're doing anyway. So feel free to do that. And I also want to, again, reiterate a trigger warning for this particular poem for mentions of suicide. This poem is titled Things About Myself and the World I Did Not Know I Knew, Part 1. 1. 2 weeks after we started dating, you confessed that you loved me. For 2 hours, we argued because I told you you didn't. 2. Humans are composed of 90% stardust. So whenever someone mentions being made in God's image, I imagine outer space folding in on itself so it can make a wish. Sometimes I fold myself into a closed fist when I want to fight oblivion. This is how I make God come true. On January 17th, 2003, I watched my baby sister swim into this world head first. I was 6 years and 364 days old. Turning 7 was nothing in comparison to standing next to the doctor as she told my mother to push, to go. 4, I don't want to be a mom. Not because it looks painful, but because I would not be good at it. 5, most days I am quick to claim womanhood and fear I'll be labeled as other if I do not. When people think women, they often think beauty. When I think of myself, I often correlate it with the words not pretty enough. I never realized how ugly I could be until my cousin tried to make me buy a pair of high heels I could not walk in. He said I looked too much like a bro. He said no man would ever fall in love with me because I am too much of a mirror. 6, I reflect on my life more than I live it. 7, You told me your next girlfriend would not hear anything about your suicidal days, in fear she'll grow too worried about you like I did. She'll never hear the stories about how you contemplated jumping into your neighborhood lake in hopes the water would hold you tighter than your mother never did. 8. A crocodile can't stick its tongue out. A duck's quack cannot echo and nobody knows why. 9. Go is the shortest complete sentence in the English language. So whenever anyone forgets how fast life can pass, always, always, always go. 10. Michaela means who is of God. The question mark is added for a reason. 11. On January 18th, 1996, I was born into this world with 12 fingers. Everybody jokes that this is a sign I was supposed to be a writer. I have the scars to prove it. 12. Alcohol is dangerous. I have a father to prove it. 13. Poets often find things beautiful that we shouldn't, like death. I love watching stars commit suicide. I fear people want to be found just as beautiful when they are reduced back to dust. 14. My real name is Michaela, but I worry that I am not of God. 15. 6 months after we started dating, I begged you to stay because you loved me. For 2 hours, we argued because you told me you didn't. All right. Thank you all for listening, and thank you all again for being here. So I wanted to talk a little bit more at length about the planets, not only in regards to the gods and goddesses that have inspired their names, but also just, again, the different overlaps we have between like cultures all around the world. So when thinking about Mercury, the planet of Mercury, if you're thinking about it in an astrological lens, Mercury typically indicates how we learn, what conjures our curiosity, the kind of information we exchange, and how we communicate with the world at large, which is why when it's in retrograde, everybody panics because that's typically times in which people are more prone to not say what they mean or have miscommunications, or if you work in technology or work from home like I do, that's the time when your computer's like, I'm just gonna like completely erase whatever this important thing is that you're working on. That doesn't happen again. But anyway, in Greek mythology, Hermes, the Romans knew him as Mercury, was the messenger of the gods and the mediator between the realm of the dead and the kingdom of the living. So again, going back into those themes about communication, messaging, all that good stuff. For those who have seen Disney's Hercules, Hermes was the blue character that had the sneakers with like the wings on them, like the super fresh kicks. And then if we're to move around the globe and talking back about the Orishas, there's Elegua. Elegua is a messenger god, a trickster, a warrior, and an opener of doorways. So allowing for new experiences, information to come in, all that good stuff. Travelers often seek his protection, and he rules the crossroads as well as fate, since he can see all of past, present, and future. His personality is playful, mischievous, and childlike, but also clever. So again, trickster tends to have a very negative connotation, but again, like Elegua is not necessarily like evil, bad, any kind of like those kind of negative connotations. Wanted to really stress that. And then of course, if we're again talking about other equivalents or counterparts, for those who are Marvel fans, or just again, if you're a big nerd and you know some of the stuff, another equivalent would be Loki. All right, so I'm inviting you to go back into your writing. We're going to take another 2 minutes, and I want you to choose just one of these prompts, just one. Saying that because I know a lot of y'all, and I know y'all are some overachievers. So pick one of these prompts, which are a time you wish you had spoken up, but you didn't. Think about someone you can tell all of your deepest secrets and intimate thoughts. Who are they? Why do you trust them? A conversation you hope to have with someone one day, or write about a time in which you felt you were stuck between two paths. So it is 6:26. At 6:28, I will read the second poem and we'll go from there. This next poem is titled Introductions. Again, I have saved a little bit of time at the end, so if you want to, again, jot some more notes while I'm reading, or again, you will have time to come back to this as well. This piece is titled Introductions, also nicknamed Mind Your Manners. When he asked me, "Who are you?" I could feel myself trip over the syllables that illustrate my existence, the spelling and pronunciation of my title that is just as complicated as I am. My tongue constantly unwraps my presence, leaving itself tied in a bow. Who are you? Do I discuss how I like to hold hands and conversation? The way my eyes open and close like willows, wishing someone would love them back. He asks again, "Who are you?" I can feel myself unraveling. I do not know how to answer. So instead, I reluctantly mention that I write poems, only to remember how poetry leaves me in pieces. No one ever sees the full thing, not even me. All right. So if we were to go, again, I'm trying to go in the order of the solar system. So the next planet would be Venus. Venus is the planet of love and pleasure. It rules our sentiments, what we value, what we love, our taste, pleasures, the art that we're more inclined to enjoy, and overall just what makes us happy. Based around the ancient Italian goddess associated with fields and gardens, Venus was later identified by the Romans with the Greek goddess of love, Aphrodite. And again, like I mentioned before, my introduction to all of this was through Beyonce's Lemonade, where again, she paid homage to Oshun. Oshun is principally the goddess of love, fertility, sensuality, and beauty, but is also sometimes known as the goddess of sweet waters and protector of the river Oshun in Nigeria. One of the different creation stories and myths that I stumbled upon highlights Oshun as a central figure in the creation of human beings. So there's two creation stories. So this is the first one that I'll share with you. And again, so many of these stories are passed down orally and were, again, like because of the Atlantic slave trade through the African diaspora, the stories vary depending on what region you are in. But according to this legend, when Oludumare, again, that's the supreme god, the supreme Orisha, sent 17 Orishas basically down to earth and was like, I need y'all to populate the earth. I need you to make life happen. 17 of them went down. Oshun was the only goddess. Oshun was the only woman. And men, being men, basically were like, we got this. We don't need you. Like you go and do your own thing. Like we can handle this assignment. We don't need your help. And so Oshun was like, all right, bet. And so clearly, because they were being reckless, nothing happened. They weren't able to create life. They weren't able to make things happen on the planet. And so they had to return back to Oludumare and be like, we failed, like we weren't able to do it. And so it was only the 16 men who came back. And so Oludumare was like, well, where's Oshun? I sent Oshun with you. Where is she? And so of course they had to like go back, like tails between legs and be like, we messed up. We really need your help. Can you help us like create life on the planet? And so that is also why Oshun is considered the goddess of sweet waters, because it is because of her like extension of water over the earth that life was able to happen. And so she is credited as one of the key parts of humanity and how like we all came to be. So the next part, leaning more into those themes about love and pleasure, I want you to pick, again, one of the following prompts and then take 2 minutes to write as much as you can about one of these memories. So think about the first time you fell in love. How does love and pleasure show up in your life? And what do you need to do to make more room for self-care and wellness? And then after that, I have 3 shorter poems that I will read. It is 6:32, so at 6:35, we'll continue. So I didn't write down the title of all the poems. There's actually a fourth one for this section. They are all like itty bitty. So the order is the poem, This Is What I Love, Adonis, Why Do You Like My Stomach So Much? And then I Was a Visual Artist first. So this is what I love. This is what I love. The way my mother's laugh consumes a room. My sister's hair, big and unapologetic. My lover's skin, the way it absorbed light and gave it back. My dad's love of hip hop and a daughter that is not his. The way the moon has always been female. And this body, for always holding and taking, and for the way it fights back. Adonis. He did not stay around long, but I convinced myself forever and 4 weeks could be identical. After he left, I carried the grief the way I would have our children. I gave them all his name. Why do you like my stomach so much? He places a kiss above my belly button, and with a voice so certain, he replies, that's where life comes from. I think that's so wonderful. And the last poem for this section, a little bit of a side story to attach to it. It is super duper short, like literally only like 2 sentences. But I posted this poem on Facebook 4 years ago when my current partner and I first started talking. And I was like trying to be all hush hush because I was like all giddy and goofy because like I was in love and all this other stuff, right? But I like wanted to be like chill about it. So I was just like typing little poems and posting them as my Facebook status at the time. And this is one that I posted, and this is the one where like all the red alerts went up and people were inboxing me and they were like, who are you talking to? But I had to include it just because it's just it's nice to go back to that space. But the poem is titled, I Was a Visual Artist First. Every poem I have ever written is not nearly as good as the masterpieces I would leave on your neck. I was a visual artist first. All right. So now we're going to talk about Earth, the planet that we call home. Earth is the 3rd planet from the sun and the only astronomical object that we know of to harbor life. So large amounts of water can be found throughout the solar system, but only Earth sustains liquid surface water. And as many of us know, about 71% of Earth's surface is made up of the ocean, very similar to how we as human beings are made up of a lot of water. Earth is the only planet not named after a Roman god or goddess, but is associated with the goddess Terra Mater, or Gaia to the Greeks. This can very loosely be translated to our perception of Mother Earth, Mother Nature, so on and so forth. The Orisha I wanted to highlight for this section was Yemaya, a major water spirit from the Yoruba religion. She is the mother of all the Orishas. She is the patron spirit of rivers, particularly the Ogun River in Nigeria. Yemaya is motherly and strong and fierce and protective, and she cares very deeply for her children. She's often depicted as a mermaid and is associated with the moon, depending on, again, what region you are in, water and feminine mysteries. However, I ran this part of my presentation past one of my friends, and she pushed back a little bit and was like, I think like Oshun would also be a very good equivalent to Mother Earth. I didn't mention this a couple slides back, but one thing about Oshun is that if someone is trying to expand their family, if someone's trying to get pregnant, Oshun is often the person that they would like ask in request of guidance. So when thinking about, again, these elements of motherhood, Mother Earth, Mother Nature, all of these kind of themes, Yemaya and Oshun are probably the best equivalents when thinking about the planet Earth. So again, gonna take 2 minutes. Perfect, it's 6:38, so we can start or get right to it. I love when it's like evenly timed. So you can either write for the next 2 minutes about your mother or a motherly figure in your life. This can be a teacher, a mentor, an auntie, an older sibling, a cousin, whoever. You can write about nature, specifically a time in which you felt safe, protected, and happy while outdoors, or you can just simply write about your personal relationship to water. And so take 2 minutes and we'll come back. Before I read this next set of poems, I wanted to again reiterate some of the different trigger warnings. So these next 4-ish pieces talk a lot about menstrual cycles, reproduction, but also themes of police violence, racism, things like that. And so again, want to give you all space and time, do whatever you need to do to take care of yourself, and also be prepared. So these next 4 pieces are also on the shorter end. So the first one is titled, "To the Mothers, to My Unwanted Uterus." When my uterus is impatient with me, when she has made room for company I do not wish to keep, she yells until her throat starts bleeding. I find myself with ruined panties, a crime scene, no witnesses. My uterus keeps making the bed, and I keep unmaking it and children. In this home, I am all body, nobody, and nobody. Practice. Even when bare, he wears all black. He is casket ready, like all men I know. I stay over for days at a time. We practice making babies until 2. After he collapses, I fall back to wonder, what if this will be the last? And like the women before me, I prepare breakfast the morning after. So much black iron and burning meat. And on cue, my sacrifice rises with the sun. Makes perfect. The first and only time I took a Plan B pill, I thought about the ways I must have disappointed both my grandmother and her God. I asked the boy for water when I really meant wine, and joked later that I only wished to drown an already dying thing. I do not know if I meant a potential baby or my love for him. Might as well take all the things I wanted to hell with me. The first and only time I took a Plan B pill, I stared at the little white thing and figured it was better than the little black thing my body could possibly want to cook up. It was pointless anyway. Between my birth control and weight, I was already too heavy to carry anything other than grief, trauma, or the weight of the world I wanted to build with the boy I wanted, whatever we could have made that night. I wanted to feel myself swell up so big with something so beautiful, unforgivably, I swallow it anyway. Figured it was worth it, even if we would only try again anyway. And this last piece is on a lighter note. It is an ode to my mother, and a particular childhood memory that was very important to me. So shout out to Jennifer Black. She's the best. This poem is Untitled. In the winter, when I was 10, my mom had begun shaving my armpits for me. We did the routine bi-weekly. The stubble would appear and we would stand side by side in our bathroom, my arms raised and her hands, steady as a surgeon, carving away the unladylike pieces of myself. Back and forth, back and forth. We went back and forth on how long this ritual would last. How am I supposed to learn how to do this if you don't let me try? What, are you going to be doing this for me until I'm grown? The universe is funny. Being grown happened overnight without my permission. This is the same winter my period came and my aunt cried and cried and cried and exclaimed, "I can't believe you're a woman now." That summer, womanhood looked like riding my bike for longer, going across stretches of sidewalk that didn't know my name, my family's name, only knew the turning of wheels like the turning of time. You're old enough to take your bike around the block if you want. You don't have to keep riding back and forth. Okay. So now we are on Mars, the planet of war. And let me be very clear, by calling it the planet of war, that's a very, very oversimplified way of looking at it. Mars is so much more. It also talks about like our desires, action steps, sex, aggression, assertion, passion, energy, basically all the things where it's like, what drives you? What makes you want to do the things that you do? Like, who are you willing to fight for? What are you willing to fight for? All of those things. If we're talking about Roman pantheon, Mars is the god of war, the alleged divine protector of the city of Rome. Originally, Mars was the god of vegetation and the protector of cattle and fields, but later became associated with warfare as the Roman Empire began to expand through military conquest. Shocker. Eventually, Mars was identified with the Greek god of war, Ares. And if we're, again, going back to the Orishas, the counterpart would be Shango. Shango is an Orisha, a deity. He rules thunder, lightning, is a symbol of fire, justice, a powerful warrior known for wielding an axe. So again, connecting back to all these other pantheons, all these other religious entities and legends, similar to Thor, but very, very different as far as like the idea of what it means to be a warrior. And again, when we're talking about like counterparts, often when we talk about like feminine energy and masculine energy, like that's Venus and Mars, right? Which would make sense because Oshun was one of Shango's wives. So a nice little fun fact. So 647, again, we're gonna dive right back into our writing prompts. I want you to pick one of these 4, and then we'll spend 2 minutes on it before I go to the next poem. So one of the prompts, how does anger feel in your body? Are you someone that your face gets hot, your heart starts beating, you're like, ooh, like you have to clench your hands. Like what is anger, like how does anger take form in your body? What impact has war had on you or your life? What are you passionate about? Who or what do you fight for? So the prompts are, how does anger feel in your body? What impact has war had on you or your life? What are you passionate about? What or who do you fight for? And again, it's 48, so we'll take this until 6:50. The poem for this section, I only selected one because it's a little bit of a longer one. Again, wanted to give a trigger warning. This poem talks about police violence and racism. Additionally, again, since it's a longer piece too, like you can feel free to jot notes, talk to one another in the chat, or also, again, if you're like, I just want to write a couple more sentences about like this prompt, please feel free. But the title of this piece is On What It Means to Love the Drug Dealer. The most dangerous game I have ever played was simple. Drive with unarmed Black men in my car and wait. Wait for sirens, wait for flashing lights, wait. I realized this after another Black man is shot on camera in front of his girlfriend and his daughter. The video, it haunts my Facebook for days, lingers like a ghost, is shared like toys and secrets let out of the bag, like weed let out of the bag, like Xanax let out of the bag. I cannot turn off the image of red blood on this man's white shirt, of censored faces, in bodies that are too Black, too explicit to be seen by white eyes. This man, he haunts my Facebook. The photos are endless. He wore ties, taught children, did everything right and still managed to lose his life. So what does that mean for Black men who ain't that? For the young boys that wear hoodies and grills and sell baggies, I wonder this as I drive the drug dealer home. Praise be the way he laughs, a cacophony of flowers blooming in hip hop, the way he is unapologetic in his moves. I think of this when his eyes are red and his t-shirt is not. The most dangerous game I have ever played was driving Black boys home, a mystery of whether or not my car smells like pastime, a shot in the dark, in the dark, in the dark skin that both shields and exposes him. Black boys be some type of magic, whether they are drug dealers or teachers or homeless or child, armed or unarmed. Ain't that magic? The way they disappear and reappear in hashtags, how they are suddenly evaporated behind white hands and officers. Black boys be illusion most days, and the only way I can keep him alive is by holding him in my passenger seat. I drive the drug dealer home. In turn, I build a home in the drug dealer, despite them making him villain, making him monster, the way they make him everything but beautiful. Also, I appreciate y'all who are dropping some of your prompt responses in the chat. Love to see it. All right, so gonna shake that off and we are gonna move forward. We only have a couple planets left, and the next one is Jupiter, and that is the planet of success and luck. So good luck, optimism, success, generosity. Jupiter brings joy to life. So again, like I mentioned before with astrology, if I were to go super in depth, we talk about natal charts, but I can show y'all how to look up your own natal charts at the end of this. But again, so this is the area of your chart that would talk a lot about those kind of themes, right? Success, generosity, approaches to it, et cetera, et cetera. In Roman mythology, Jupiter is the god of the sky and thunder. And king of the gods in ancient Roman religion and mythology. Jupiter was the chief deity of Roman state religion throughout the Republican and imperial eras until Christianity became the dominant religion of the empire. The Greek equivalent would be Zeus. So again, if we're talking back about Orishas, I talked about the supreme god Oludumare. Oludumare, also known as Olorun, depending again on what region you are in, is one of the original creators. This creation story told by the Yoruba of West Africa describe Oludumare living with the Orishas in the, I'm probably gonna mispronounce this, baobab tree in the sky. Drop the pronunciation in the chat if you know it. Until a curious Orisha, Obatala, asked permission to create something solid in the watery world below. So again, we talked about one of the creation stories, right? And I showed y'all the Golden Chain trailer, the trailer for that experimental film about this particular creation story. So In this creation tale, all of the Orishas are in the sky, and then there is the watery world below. And so Obatala is more curious, and he's like, I want to like explore, like I want to go below and see what we can do. Like we should expand, we should be creating, we should be doing more things. And so Oludumare, again, the supreme Orisha, is like, okay, you are more than free to go and explore. And so Obatala goes around to all the different Orishas and is like, may I, like, can I have gold? I need gold for this expedition. All of the Orishas provide gold, and the gold is melted down into the golden chain, alluding back to the short film in its title. And at the end of this golden link chain is a hook. And so Obatala hooks into the sky, and for 7 days descends down this golden chain. And while on this world below, begins creating these clay figures, because he's down there and he's like, you know, riding solo. So he feels lonely. And so he starts creating these different clay figures. And when he reaches back out, he's like, Oludumare, I've created these clay figures, but like something is lacking, something's missing. And so Oludumare, again, the correspondent of Jupiter, the supreme Orisha, breathe life into these clay figures, and thus humanity begins. And so again, if y'all want to read more about the creation story, I have some of the references at the end of this presentation, but also if you have Criterion, you can watch Bodorin's Golden Chain short film. All right, one of the next prompts, just 2 prompts to choose from this time. First being, what are you most proud of? Second one being, what or who brings you joy? So it is 57. I'll give you an extra minute so you can go back and like add to your other ones if you would like, but we'll resume at 7 o'clock. All right. So I'm realizing I got overzealous earlier. I think it was in the Venus section, and I already read this poem, which is probably why it wasn't listed back there. So we're just going to go a couple slides and then I'll resume reading some poems. But next we're going to talk about Saturn. I'm a little bit partial to Saturn because Saturn rules Capricorn placements. And so as a Capricorn, I'm always like giddy whenever Saturn is brought up. So Saturn is the planet of karma and responsibility, which of course, when you think of stereotypically, traditionally, Capricorns are very like ambitious, very much into work. So of course, the planet of karma, responsibility, boundaries, restriction, limitations, and structure, of course, that's the planet where it's like, oh yeah, that's us. So in the Roman pantheon, Saturn is the god of sowing or seed. The Romans equated him with the Greek agriculture deity Cronus. In Greek mythology, Cronus was one of the Titans. And so when thinking about this idea and this relationship to power, Cronus is an interesting one. So again, for all of y'all who grew up Greek mythology kids, I'm sure you know this. But this is something I learned way later, that Cronus was one of the Titans, and it was predicted like, you are gonna have like children, they are gonna like be more powerful than you, they're gonna overthrow you. And Cronus was like, well, can't have that. And so every time his wife bare children, he would eat them. However, his wife was like, we're not gonna do that anymore. And so she tricked him by wrapping up a boulder. And so he eats the boulder thinking it is his child. And in reality, his child survives and his child ends up being Zeus. So again, this idea of this like power struggle in this relationship with power. So if we're going back to the Orishas, I believe this is pronounced Oko. If someone is more knowledgeable, please drop that in the chat. I'm not above critique. So in Yoruba faith, he is the deity of farming, strong hunter, and in Brazilian candomblé, he represents being the Orisha of agriculture. And so only 2 more prompts this time. What limitations have you placed on yourself? And what or who are you responsible for? So again, take 2 minutes. At 7:04, I'll read, or at 7:05, I'll read a brief poem called Capricorn, and we'll keep it moving and grooving. All right, for the sake of time, I'm just going to cut this one a little bit short. This next piece is titled Capricorn. It is one of the shorter pieces featured in my book, Black Girls, Silent, and Other Things Made of Gold. Capricorn. I am ruled by Saturn. Everything I do comes back, reaping what I've sown full time, over and over, a retrograde, a ticking time bomb, an ode to the karma that I was born with. All right. Second to last planet, we have Uranus, the planet of rebellion. So I don't know, again, I sound like a lot of y'all are into astrology since all of you are dropping your sun, moon, and rising signs. So for those of you with Aquarius placements, you may be very familiar as Uranus is the ruling planet of Aquarius, which would make sense. Aquarius is being the rebel of the zodiac. Uranus is associated with enlightenment, progressiveness, objectivity, novelty, and ingenuity. This is a planet of change and originality, also with the different elements of surprise, right? So it shocks, it awakens, it revitalizes. This is also the planet that is considered to be responsible for human genius in the arts and sciences. This is also another Greek name that I looked up a bunch of times how to pronounce, and it was different on every single site I looked up. So I'm just gonna say Caelus, but I feel like that's incorrect. But this is the Roman primal god of the sky in Roman myths, iconography, and literature. The Greek god Uranus was of major importance to the theogonies of the Greeks. And then going back to the Orishas, Oya is the warrior Orisha of winds, lightning, and violent storms, death, and rebirth. Powerful, she is not one to be played with. So tornadoes, whirlwinds, all these things accompanied by lightning, like that is her bag. She is a warrior Orisha who rides to do battle at the side of Shango. And is also one of his wives. I think I mentioned that earlier with Oshun. And she is a very complex Orisha, as she's also one of the only ones that holds power over the dead. So again, not the one you want to mess with, is super just like fantastic. Moving forward, gonna give you a little bit more time since I don't have a poem associated with this slide. And so want you to take a moment to think about a moment in time in which something deeply surprised you, whether it was learning something new or like a surprise party, like something very literal. Think about a moment in which you were surprised. Or you can take 2 minutes to write about something you feel super knowledgeable about. What's like your thing that you nerd out over? Clearly, I'm really into astrology and planets, so I want to know more about what y'all are very nerdy about. And feel free to drop some of those responses in the chat as well. Just wanted to lift up some of the things y'all have shared in the chat that you nerd out about. I'm seeing video game lore, punk and post-punk culture, nerding out about vinyl records and music history, and of course, art supplies. All right, math is not one of my strong suits, so I lied on the previous slide. This is the second to last planet. And so we're talking about Neptune. Neptune is a planet of mystery and illusion, typically represents one's dream life and mystic qualities. It is also known as the planet of bewitchment and wonder. Neptune is the god of fresh water and the sea in Roman religion, and the Greek counterpart would be Poseidon. Orunmila is the Orisha of wisdom, knowledge, and divination. This source of knowledge is believed to have a keen understanding of human form and purity. He, alongside Elegua, witnessed all of destiny unfold and therefore can be consulted to know where a person's fate is headed. So again, we talked about Elegua earlier, right? The god of crossroads. So this is the one who's like past, present, future. And Orunmila is more so like that internal, intuitive, like more so like having this like gift of knowledge and understanding, and what role that has on human existence. So it is 7:10, we have 20 more minutes left, and then we have to talk about Pluto next. And I wanna give you all time, of course, to write a little bit more. And so take the next 2 minutes to write as much as you can about one of the following memories. So what is something that is a mystery to you? Or think about a dream or nightmare you've had that has stuck with you. What is something that is a mystery to you? Think about a dream or nightmare you've had that stuck with you. This next poem is titled 13 Nudes, a Recollection of Nightmares. This is inspired by Anne Carson's The Glass Essay. I had a creative writing professor named Tobias Ray, who also is a fantastic poet. And he instructed us to rewrite parts of the Glass Essay and how it applied to our lives. The Glass Essay was an assignment given by Anne Carson's therapist, where she was told to write these things called nudes. Very different from the nudes we think of when we think of today, but like her nudes were more so like these like intimate, like writings, like more like diary entries. And so this is a recollection of different nightmares I've had that I talked about in this poem. However, want to do another trigger warning for themes of death, suicide. Yeah, I believe that's the main two. So again, whatever you need to do to take care of yourself while I read this, please feel free. 1. In my dream, my first love is drowning at the expense of his own hand. He places his head beneath the waves, exorcises the demons, and is baptized inside a cloud of bubbles. When he floats to the top, I am on a distant shore, burying my toes in the sand, unaware of his shipwrecked body. When I awake, I am covered in salt water. I remove a seashell from the back of my throat, place it to my ear, and listen as he screams on the other end. 2. I do not tell my therapist about the recurring vision of the man in my closet. 3. Every time I close my eyes, my room goes up in flames, and I'm not sure if I'm doing this on purpose. 4. At first, the funniest nightmares are the ones about zombies. They teeter like unsuspecting card houses, dragging their rotting feet and bare knuckles. They stroll right past me. 5. When my friend was dying, I thought of ways to convince the hospital to let me sleep in the lobby. I needed a place to store all of this waiting. I did not want to miss anything more than I knew I would eventually miss him. The night before his funeral, I slept so good, you may have thought I was the one who died. I am startled awake by his laughter. 6. Alex and I have been broken up for 2 years. In 0.59 seconds, Google produces 605,000 results for dreams about drowning. Repressed issues are coming back to haunt you. You are feeling overwhelmed by emotions. Results: for years past between us. 604,998 more reasons to love him more than Blake. 7. There's a tiny voice in my head apologizing to the devil, and I'm not quite sure if the voice belongs to me, and I'm not quite sure if I'm asleep to begin with. 8. Zombies do not eat other zombies. Zombies do not waste calories on the dead. 9. One night, I am in an elevator, and right before it is about to fall, I become conscious that I am dreaming, and I let it plummet anyway. 10. After Blake and I break up, I stop dreaming of the ocean. 11. The zombie dreams are not funny anymore. 12. Sometimes I don't know why I wake up scared, but I would rather wake up scared than not at all. 13. The goriest nightmare is the one where people are stabbing themselves with needles. Google says you need to mend a relationship that has gotten out of hand. Everybody asks me, which relationship? What hurts? I reply, where do you want me to start? Okay. So last planet, which Pluto is still a planet to me. So that is why Pluto is here in all of her glory. Pluto, the planet of death and transformation. So death, rebirth, renewal, transformation. In Roman mythology, Pluto was the mysterious god of the dead and lord of the underworld. The Greek equivalent, Hades, is more commonly known, as his name is also more popular than the term underworld himself. Like, I've noticed that Hades is used pretty interchangeably regarding the entity as well as the underworld. And so, if again, connecting back to the Orishas, Babalu Aye is the Orisha of healing in all of its aspects. So healing the land, healing ties, healing the physical body, respect for the elderly and protector of health. In Brazil, this Orisha is referred to as meaning son of the Lord of heaven, and the Orisha's face is thought to be so scarred by disease and so terrifying that he appears with this straw masquerade that covers his whole body. When thinking about the connection to different Catholic saints, the other counterpart would be Saint Lazarus, for those who are familiar or abide with Christian mythology. And so lastly, we are going to, I'm actually going to give you, let's see, 7:18. I'll give you 5 minutes. And so I want you to pick one of these prompts. And then I also want you to go back to your other prompts and revise or add more. I'm going to ask at the end if anybody wants to share any elements from their solar system that you all have created, but you totally don't have to. And so we'll take 5 minutes. I'll read one last poem, and then we'll begin wrapping up this presentation. Thank you all again for joining me tonight, and we'll resume at 7:23. This last piece I'm going to read is titled Inheritance. And my apologies again for not reading this last prompt out loud. Just trying to squeeze in as much of this content as we can before 7:30 hits. So again, I appreciate you all for being here, and I'm looking forward to hearing a little bit more about what y'all wrote. Also, thank you for those who uplifted the names of those who have passed on or the relatives and ancestors in the chat. I really deeply appreciate it. Inheritance. Joan gave birth to Debbie. Debbie gave birth to Jenny. Jenny gave birth to me. I come from a long line of women who know broken, who know hold, who know how to make this world golden and sweet, even when it's all teeth and greed. The women in my family, we all have our fair share of secrets and stories and men who ain't it and victories. The women in my family are powerful. Joan, who gave birth to Debbie, was stubborn and cranky, but she loved the little things like ladybugs, the color green. I imagine her dancing was breezy always. I imagine her shuffling feet, her crossword puzzles, her tired hands and tough knuckles. I called Joan Nana. Joan gave birth to Debbie. Debbie gave birth to Jenny. Jenny gave birth to me. Debbie is redhead whirlwind, is loudmouth gossip, is puzzle piece, is blunt honesty. I imagine Debbie, who wakes before the sun, who gave birth to Jenny, singing early in the morning. It is her voice that brings forth the sun. Joan gave birth to Debbie. Debbie gave birth to Jenny. Jenny gave birth to me. Jenny is the sun, always has been, always will. And this is not a metaphor. My mother is the reason the earth came to be, is solid ground, is foundation, is blunt honesty and knuckles and warmth and light at the same time. Jenny drinks coffee. Jenny sings too. Jenny's love is hardworking and powerful, and I can feel it always. Joan gave birth to Debbie. Debbie gave birth to Jenny. Jenny gave birth to me. I come from a solar system of grace, of worship, of beauty. The women in my family have always been universal, have always been close to God, have always been what keeps me afloat, back to water, head to sky. Here at this intersection, we are one. Okie dokie. So we're just going to speed through these last couple clips because I really want to hear from y'all. It would be a travesty to talk about Afrofuturism, to talk about Pluto, to talk about death and rebirth, and not include T'Challa visiting the ancestral plane from the 2018 masterpiece that is Black Panther. And so this is not too big of a spoiler in case y'all have not seen this, but this is the moment in which T'Challa has been crowned king, and as a rite of passage, he gets to go on to the ancestral plane and see those who are ancestors, those who have passed on. And it is one of my favorite film scenes of all time. It's one of my favorite movies. I'm not going to play this track, even though I really, really want to, but I want to give time at the end. If y'all have not seen Black is King, it is on Disney Plus. Beyonce, need I say more? But this is the part that is an homage to the Lion King. And this is the section that would be right after Mufasa has died. I really hope that's not a spoiler because Lion King is older than I am. But if you have not seen Lion King or Black is King, Disney Plus. All right, so I want to open up the floor and we'll end the evening. I want to hear from y'all. What different prompts, what part of your solar system did you want to talk about? Whether it was your origin story with the sun, first time you fell in love, those you miss who have passed on, the odes to your mothers, like whatever prompt you want to talk about. If you want to share, feel free to unmute and we can just, it's only a couple of us, you can just unmute and share. I would love to see your shining faces, but again, totally respect if you want to have your camera off. And also, I want to be respectful of time. So if you can't stay past 7:30 to hear some of the share outs, thank you again for coming and joining us tonight. So I'm gonna open the floor in case anybody wants to share. And no pressure either, but I wanted to at least give the option. All right. So to end, here are some Afrofuturistic reading suggestions: How Long Till Black Future Months by N.K. Jemisin, Parable of the Sower by Octavia E. Butler, anything by Octavia E. Butler, Binti, Witches Steeped in Gold, Wild Seed, Children of Blood and Bone, Colson Whitehead, The Intuitionist, Octavia Butler's Dawn. Thank you all again so much for joining me tonight. This has been a pleasure. I have loved creating this presentation for y'all. And thank you just for sharing and being dope. And I hope you all enjoy the rest of your night.